welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Alexandra Renders. She is the founder and CEO of Willow, a certified B-Corp and a designated women-based enterprise investment firm. Welcome to the show, Alexandra.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice to be here.
You are welcome to the show. You are welcome to India in this online form and not just in India.
My second call to India today.
Wonderful, wonderful. So you see, India is calling not just you in as a podcast guest. We are calling a lot of investments. A lot of firms are now coming to India. Especially, they want to open a new channel so that they don't have to be so much dependent on China. That's the present trend is in business. Right now, we will talk about bringing spiritual principles to capitalism. That's what you talk a lot about, Alexandra. So let's talk about spiritual principles to capitalism. Why do you talk about this thing? When it is all a lot of people just talk about profits.
Okay, well, there's part of the problem. A lot of people talk about profits. I've been a 37-year Wall Street veteran. I started my career on Wall Street. And I must say that I've seen capitalism go from bad to worse. I've seen many more disenfranchised workers, many more disenfranchised people around the globe. Those who have more, those who have less. And that gap is widening. It's not narrowing. Despite all the wealth that's being created around the globe, it's being concentrated in very few hands. When you have a situation like that, it's very destabilizing to the world. And what happens on the other side of the world matters. It matters. I believe we're all energetically linked. So, being in this industry for as long as I have, I know I'm here to make money for my clients and invest. And I deal with, moderately sized accounts. I gave up years ago when I started my own company, dealing with the very high net worth, the institutional. I wanted nothing to do with it. I wanted to chart my own course. And what I really believe is that the biggest issue with capitalism, over the years, there's been this movement towards conscious capitalism, towards environmental social governance or social responsibility. And what I've seen, it's been like the craze for 15 years. And I admit I was one of those managers at one point, but it's done nothing to change the quality of life for people around the globe. So I said, what do I need to do? I'm a meditator. I'm a meditator. I'm also a healer and a channel. So here I am, a Wall Street executive, but I also have a very deep spiritual bend. And I realize after sitting in boardrooms, after being in senior management in very large companies and watching what was transpiring, that people were operating from fear and not from love.
Okay.
And when we operate from fear, bad decisions are made. And I knew when I set out for my company in 2009 that I wanted to create a change that was real and lasting. And that was the birth of me bringing spiritual principles to business. So it started with me. It started with my own evolution to see the way in which I was and was not showing up in the world and in business. And I saw too that I also operated from fear all too often. And it really was a self-evolution that I knew that if something was to change, I needed to be that change. And I had to start from within myself to address the ways in which I was behaving in the world from fear. So that's how it all started.
Absolutely. That's how it all started. And let's learn how this can be done. And you make a very interesting observation, Alexandra, is that your belief is that spiritual principles must become integral to business for capitalism to survive. Means that's a very big statement, and I get it, but how do you explain it? And so that you are the master for today, so that people understand the profundity of this particular understanding. And the
I,
first question: how do you bring spiritualism when people forget? Several of these organizations forget the purpose for profit. Forget the vision also for profit. How do you do it? You have been in Wall Street. You know about the problems, the greed of some of the people on Wall Street, and the problems on the common streets.
Yeah, on the corporate level, I think, it is addressing it is about a deep dive within yourself. First, it is about addressing that which stops us as individuals from living an authentic life. We have so many masks, and the masks need to be stripped off. So when I was in corporate and I was in boardrooms, I saw them making decisions. How do we make this number so Wall Street likes it, so the street likes it? Well, that is a false pretense. That's a lie. And it comes from fear. Like what I witnessed in the president of the company, CEO, was he was afraid to disappoint Wall Street. Well, disappoint them. I mean, big deal. Disappoint them. Stop thinking so short term and create a culture that has a long term trajectory. So, the first thing is address the fear, address what's within oneself. And I argue that one of the biggest issues I think humans have, well, maybe two, is a deep fear of rejection. This is what I saw at the board level. This is what I saw at the senior management level, sitting in my meetings. Everyone wanted to agree to come to a consensus, not because they really believed it, but they didn't want to stand out and then therefore be rejected. I think that is like a real core issue. Now, I'm talking, I've been in high level companies. So this isn't just the common person on the street. This is, I think, a thread that seems to go throughout humanity, at least through what I've witnessed. So it always starts with a deep dive of self. As a leader, you cannot affect change unless you're authentic, because then you're living a lie, and people know that. People know that, and then they become robots in the organization. The second thing that I would say, as part of the change, is become very mission, vision, value oriented. Like, what is your mission and what is the values you want to create around that mission? But, make the mission more than just simply making money. The money will come when you do the right thing and you're feeling good. I think what's happening is that we're just, society and business as a whole is just focused on that bottom line, making that profit, making it wider. And how much do you need? Truly, how much do you really need in this life? And I'm not saying that, like, how much do you have to have? It really comes down to that, like, deep dive within self and recognizing that you are part of the whole here. And we each have a part to play here, literally a part to play, so to speak, right? And this to me is where it all. This is ground zero to me.
Right, right. But who is listening? Who wants to change? Secondly, you brought about the talked about change. Will people who want, the promoters who have put their money, they want it to double, triple, always talk of shareholder value, and the CEO who is a paid employee, he talks of CSR and DEI and all that stuff. Do they have really that power to bring in that change? Means, can they do it? And who wants to bring change? Why should business owners say, well, I don't care about capitalism. I don't care about, as long as I am making my millions, and billions. I can even settle someday in Saturn or wherever they want to. They have got enough money. How do you look at who is listening? Is change happening on the ground? And if how much it is happening, what is that one can, the audience, the simple audience, especially in a rural area in India, what hope should they take? Let them, or he should say, let those people go to hell. I am in my green situation. I will be here. Let me be the change. Let them be the way they want to be. and kill themselves with all the pollution, all the dirty mind, all the money that they have. Let them suffocate themselves.
Yeah. This is, I believe right now that humanity is at an inflection point. Oops. And I think that we have a choice in our human family to make some decisions. And now let me explain to you what I mean. I believe the consciousness is rising. And I also believe the consciousness is falling. And I think we're starting to see a real wide gap between those who really understand the deeper spiritual principles and those who do not. Like who are just hanging on and creating more greed, want more because of their own fear. Because of their own fear. There's really, I've years ago worked with people who had so much money they couldn't possibly use it for their entire lifetime and they thought they were poor and they were afraid to spend any of it. And then I worked with people who had very little and gave it away. It's a mindset. So I think, and it has been my experience truly. I'm featured in a French documentary right now on bringing spiritual principles to capitalism, and it went viral. And people want change. The majority of people know something's off, but they don't really know exactly what it is. So that the group that's raising in consciousness, they could affect that change. They could affect that change. And I do see more and more leaders interested, leaning in. Years ago, when I brought up the principle of bringing love to business, people thought I was idealistic. I was crazy. I mean, you can't even imagine. I was being rejected left, right, and center. And now people want to hear what I have to say, and they don't think I'm quite as crazy as I used to be. Believe it or not, people thought bringing love as a spiritual principle to capitalism was idealistic. Yet it's the one thing when you're with a dying person, it's the one thing that they want to know is that they're loved and they gave love. Their last breath, that's what they want. So what are we waiting for? So yeah, I think it's coming. And that doesn't mean we're not going to have those who are in fear and in that greed cycle. I think absolutely. I think we're seeing the contrast at such a significant level now, but more and more people are waking up. And leaders do want this because they're seeking out the consulting services, the coaching services that my husband and I offer for how to do this, how to bring these values into business. 10 years ago, people didn't go reach for it, but now they are. So I'm optimistic.
Of course, I am very much optimistic along with you, Alexandra. But my job is to ask questions, to ask right questions, and also to ensure I am the voice of the millions of people who are on the street who have many questions, but they are not able to come onto this platform.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
are the bridge between the people on the street and the people controlling the wall streets in every corner of the world. And that is why I ask my questions to you is
Hmm.
you talk about leaders. Which leader? Political leader,
Oh.
business leader, or any other leader who will bring this change. A lot of youngsters are very positive that, and a lot of people are very positive that the young generation will bring the change. But look at the leadership, the political leadership in the biggest democracy of the world. See what is the situation there. Let us see how it pans out. Let us look at the business leadership. You pick among the top 10 founders, owners of the business empires, you will know where the change will come from. And ultimately, the biggest thing that they say is let us do it together. You do all the work, you do all the create the problems, and then you go down to the man on the street, you tell them let's do, and let's reverse things together. How is going to happen? I ask this in spite of being very hopeful. I ask this is so that I want people to see that ray of hope, the light at the end of the tunnel. Or is it that the tunnel will crash and it will be a new world altogether and the sun will shine brightly, but none of us will be here. It will be a totally alien world, a different world.
This is a good question. And I do think we have big issues in our leadership across the globe. I don't think this is anything, I don't think it's a secret to most of us. And it, again, it stems from that inner world. But here's one thing that I know: every single human is a leader by the choices that we make. I'm a small peanut compared to those other companies. Even my investment company is small compared to a lot of large investment companies in the United States. But I believe that the little bit that I do, it matters. Maybe like on some level I follow like some of the principles of Buddhism and some of the other, you know, spiritual forms, that my actions matter. My words matter. My choices matter. No matter who I am, it matters. You know, so I feel in that regard, every human being is a leader. And I'm going to give an example of what I do with my employees and even like my young nieces and such like that. But if you go into a store and you're miserable, chances are everyone around you is going to respond to you in a miserable way. But if you see someone who's miserable and you go into a store and you smile and you give them that, like, just look of compassion or love or just care, or just say, "How are you?" and smile. Like, you just changed something energetically. You just changed something. And in that regard, people could choose to be a leader every single day, in every moment, in every choice that we have. On some level, I feel like humans have given up their power by thinking they have no power. But every choice I make, every choice matters. There's my power. So that's where it starts. I don't mean to say, because at this point, what I'm seeing at maybe the higher levels of capitalism and business and our political leaders, let's say, I don't see a lot who are really considering the whole. So it has to start with us. I mean, that's the bottom line. We're the leaders. This is a leading, having a podcast like this is a leader for to affect positive change. That's how I see it.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Alexandra, you talked about that people have forgotten the power that they hold. I agree with you, and I also believe that, such acts of defiance, I would call it an act of defiance, because you have to deal with the same people who disagree very, very strongly with you. That needs a lot of courage, and such, that is why I call it almost an act of defiance, because such acts of defiance not just bring back the power to people, it adds extra power to their will, to the general will, and also empowers them. And
Mm.
this also leads the foundation, creates the foundation for a better future. So I would like to understand, how do you do at Willow Investments?
Okay, so I'm gonna reframe the word defiance, because I sometimes feel like if you're defiant, you're pushing against something and you're gonna have resistance. So for me, I don't look at myself as defiant. If anything, I look at myself as very tender and loving, and just kind of moving my way through life with the flow. Like, and I feel like to a degree that's about surrender. But the other thing is I would say that I had to get really comfortable, and this is really important for women in the world. I had to get comfortable with my anger. Okay. I had to get comfortable, not just like just in general, anger, because anger in a healthy form, because there's ways to do this that it's healthy. A lot of women, especially, but even men, they'll blow up and it's aggressive anger, but that's not what it is. There's something deeper there with the anger. And I had to find a way to begin to express my anger more authentically, and first of all know it existed, and secondly more authentically and clearly. So I'm just going to give a practical example. Um, I had, a situation that warranted some anger, but instead I just tried to be the peacekeeper. And what that did was I didn't create proper boundaries, and it just, you know, bound up inside of me until I blew up, okay, or just didn't feel well. That's not that's not positive. So I do feel there's two things here. I feel like instead of like, that pushing that will, which I think will is very important because as long as you have control of the mind, I think that's good. But I think there's a better way. I think it's not so much surrender, but it's actually recognizing the full complement of what you feel and appropriately expressing it and living the truth of what you feel. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
Alexander. Absolutely. So tell me, how do you work this out? You say a leader is promoted at Willow only when they show the core competency of manifesting love, demonstrating self-awareness, instilling trust, and driving results. If they come from another organization, how do you inject that into it? And when they suppose by chance if they go out of your organization and they go to the Wall Street or any other street, how do they become that worthy again? Because that's a different world altogether.
Yeah,
I want to.
they don't generally go back. I've had some people leave, but they don't go back. They retire or go into the self-help industry, a lot of them. So, we my partner, my husband is also our executive coach, and when we came up with these values, he very skillfully put together a ranking system, 1 through 4. You know, one displaying, I think, 1 or 4 displaying the highest values around love. Okay. And he was able to like quantify what safety was, what trust looked like, what love looked like, such that we could actually not just rank the employees based on how well they're doing, how well they're serving our clients, how well they're performing, but also how well they're embodying the culture and the values of the company. And so that was uh, a lot of work for him, and it just smashed it for us so that now they know, what do I need to do to embody a higher value of love. And we have full-time coaches available to them. They can work with anybody to move their way up, to clear themselves, to take the mask off, to evolve and grow to those levels on all of those. hmm It's quite unique. I've never seen anything like it.
Absolutely, absolutely. May your tribe increase. That's all I can say. And so how do people learn more about you? There is so much to learn about spiritualism, spiritual principle, and capitalism. World is changing. Everything is changing.
Yeah,
We got to see world in a different light. I hope everybody else also understands this. And
yeah.
so, how do people learn more about it from you?
Okay.
How do
Two, two,
organizations who want to engage with you, they can
two
do that?
ways. Two ways. You can email me at Alexandra at investwithwillow, WILLOW.com. You could also go to the website investwithwillow.com. And also you can go to, I would say, go to Pascal, PASCAL, at innerstatesoffreedom.com. And that's our coaching service. Okay, so it's PASCAL at innerstatesoffreedom.com. So there you go.
Wonderful.
Thank you so
Wonderful.
much.
Wonderful. All I can say, Alexandra, is long back there was a conqueror named Alexander who was called Alexander the Great. He was using power to conquer the world. Here we have Alexandra who is out there to conquer with love. May the gods bestow on you bigger power, bigger greatness. That's all I can wish. With this, It's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed
Thank you.
for joining us.
Be well, AJ.